New World has been out for about a month now, and if you haven't had the chance to hop into the game quite yet, you may be looking for tips to help yourself get started, or maybe you have been playing this whole time and are just looking for some extra tricks that you may not know from your adventures in Aeternum. And hopefully this top 15 tips and tricks for New World video does teach you guys something, and hopefully you do pick something up from the video to help you out in your adventures. If you do find this video helpful, I would also appreciate if you left a like on it. It does help me a lot in the YouTube algorithm. And if you have any tips and tricks for others that are not mentioned here in the video, feel free to leave them below to help out your fellow travelers in New World. Kicking this video off, guys, we got our first tip, and it may seem like an obvious one to some people, but I do want to go a little bit more into a deep dive with it, and that is going to be choosing weapons and armor based on your desired role. If you are looking for complete builds, I do have a bunch on my website, dotsgaming.com, but if you just want some quick tips here, I got those for you. When you are looking to tank, you're going to want to be using primarily heavy armor in all slots, a sword and shield, and then a secondary weapon that also has an ability that has taunt on it. You're also going to want to make sure that you have carnelian gems in your weapons, which will allow those taunt effects to actually work. Now, when you are on the healing side of things, I personally recommend using heavy armor as well, and using a life staff paired with either an ice gauntlet or a hatchet. The reason I recommend those two is because I find the ice gauntlet to bring a lot of utility to a group, just with the slows, the AoE damage. You also do have the ability to entomb yourself, which is a defensive cooldown that the ice gauntlet has that allows you to basically, be invulnerable for a short period of time as long as your entomb doesn't take too much damage, and you also regen some mana. The hatchet is also a good option for some extra healing, damage, and a ton of other bonuses that come from the weapon line. Now, once you get into DPSing, things do open up a little bit more. You have access to a bunch of different weapons and armor that you can really use. Now, in terms of weapon combinations, I personally recommend choosing two weapons that scale with the same offensive stat. So for example, if you want to use a Warhammer, I recommend choosing another strength weapon as your secondary, and if you want to use, let's say, a fire staff, choosing another intelligence-based weapon as your secondary. The reason that I recommend this is because while you're leveling up, you don't have as many stats at your disposal, and so choosing one type of weapon scaling, I think, is the best during that leveling process. When you get to the end game, you can look for some more hybrid styles, but I find for the leveling process, niching down into one stat to be the most useful, while also getting some constitution for some extra HP from your gear. Now, in terms of armor weights to wear as a DPS, it is a little bit more flexible and more up to you. Myself, I personally prefer going either medium or heavy. While light does give the most damage bonus as well as a really good dodge roll, if you do get hit, you're going to be taking a lot of damage, and in those upper level zones, the mob density is really, really high, and the mobs do hit very, very hard. Medium tends to be kind of the best of all worlds, where you get a little bit of extra damage bonus, some extra CC duration on enemies, as well as some extra armor from simply being in medium armor and having 3 good dodges. On the other hand, heavy armor is going to give you the most tankiness. You're going to get the biggest addition to CCs on your opponent with an extra 20%, and you will also have extra block stability should you use an SMB like I mentioned earlier, but then you also have the most armor at your disposal, and you only have 2 kind of like short hops, but they're not really all that great, honestly, in terms of dodges. But what armor you kind of want to use the DPS is more up to you, although personally, if it was me, I go either medium or heavy. Now, in terms of how to actually optimize these weights, if you look here next to my character, you can see there's like a little bar, and whether or not you're light, medium, or heavy depends on the weight of the armor that you are currently wearing. Now, you're not going to want to equip a sword and shield unless you're actually using it, because all it does is add weight and doesn't give you anything on the armor side. If you want to go for light armor, the optimal way to wear light armor is wear light in every single slot except for your chest, which is going to be medium. That'll give you the most armor while keeping you in the light category. Medium with no shield, you're going to want to look for a medium head and hands, a heavy chest and feet, and light legs. Again, that'll give you the most armor without pushing you into heavy. And then finally, for heavy, you simply want to wear heavy in every single gear slot. My second tip for you guys is going to be the repair all button. This is actually something a lot of people don't know exists. If you hit your tab and go into your character sheet, you can see at the bottom there's a repair all button to repair all your gear. You don't have to go piece by piece to actually repair each individual gear item. My third tip is going to be that you can actually sort and change quests when you actually hit escape. If you hit escape to bring up your mouse, you can see here on the right that you do get some extra options with your quests. So you can do some extra things with them, some extra sorting, unpin them, track them, do extra things from this menu. My fourth tip is actually going to be about resources and resource locations. So in the description below, I'm going to put a link to the New World map that has a ton of resource locations for the entire map. You can sort by anything you are looking for, so you know if you want to farm iron ore, hemp, certain trees, you can see where they're located and go actually farm them. If you've played Black Desert, this is really similar to like the Something Lovely website from that game, but it's called newworldmap.com. But again, I'll have a link in the description below. But there actually is a similar type of system in the base game. Not obviously as good, but you know, there is something there where if you click map, click resource locations, it will show you for the zone you're in what type of resources are in certain colored areas on the map. So if you just are in game and want to take a quick look at where things are, you can take a peek at that. My fifth tip is going to be to do quests in batches. This is the best way to quest and level up in New World. So when you go to a new zone and you grab all of your main quests and your side quests and you have all of that stuff, you're going to want to flesh it out with faction quests as well as town project quests. Now, these are going to help you while you're out and about, just optimize the amount of experience that you're gaining. You know, we all know that walking and traveling in New World is kind of a pain in the butt, and so you want to just try to do as many quests and as many things to gain experience while you're away from town as possible. And augmenting your main and side quests with these faction board and town project quests are going to be a great way to level up and gain a ton of additional experience. Also, getting these faction tokens especially gives you a lot of bonuses. You can check out the faction shop, buy armor, potions, material converters, bag runes to be able to actually create or have someone create bags for you, and a bunch of other great items. My sixth tip is actually going to kind of tie back into my first tip, and is that anything equipped to your character actually doesn't contribute to your bag weight. So while you have something equipped to your character, like armor or something, it will of course increase your armor weight as we discussed earlier, but it removes the encumbrance from your bag weight. So let's say, for example, you're looking to farm a ton of water. What you can actually do is put the water in one of your consumable slots. Consumables don't add to character armor weight, by the way. And then you can just farm the water over and over again, but because it isn't going into your bag and it's going into a consumable slot, you can just farm it up forever and ever without actually increasing your encumbrance at all. So if you are looking to kind of, you know, stack some items and they can go in your consumable bar, that's a really good way to do it without increasing your character's weight. My seventh tip is going to be that proning hides your nameplate from enemies. If you see some, you know, maybe you're flagged for PvP and you have the, you know, because you want the 10% experience bonus, but you're not like looking for a fight, or there's just way too many people that are coming to you and you don't want to get ganked by a group of 3 people, you can actually go into prone, which will hide your nameplate from your enemies. The default keybind, I believe, is Z, so you can use that to just lay on the ground and hide yourself from enemies. My eighth tip is going to be the material converter. So like I mentioned from tip 5, when you do the faction board quest and get that currency, you can buy these things that are called material converters. And basically what these do is they allow you to convert, it's exactly what it sounds like, one material into a different material. So when you buy these and go to a certain crafting table, you can see the material conversions where you can, you know, you can convert stuff. It will be at a loss, but you can make some conversions. So let's say you have a lot of one material, but not as much of another that you do need. You can simply change one into the other. My ninth tip is that you could actually change the stats on faction gear. So what, you know, let's say you want to buy a faction piece, but you want to wear, you know, intelligence and constitution on that piece, but you don't see it from the shop. What you can do is actually buy the faction piece and then buy this thing called a rune. And then when you buy the rune and the faction piece, you can take it to whatever crafting table is associated with it. So whether it be the forge or the outfitting station or whatever, and you take it there and you should see it pop up with the actual piece as well as the rune, and you can change the material, the stats from one to the other. My 10th tip and just trick or whatever you want to call it is that you automatically crit on enemies when you hit them from behind. So that's why certain weapons like the rapier, you have the evade skill. When you use evade and you're actively fighting somebody, it's really helpful to try to evade laterally to try to get behind your opponents to be able to deal back attack damage and get those automatic crits, which a lot of times will also proc some passives. This is also really helpful if somebody's running from you and you're chasing them. You can land automatic crits when you are chasing them. Also just good to know if maybe you're the one running away. My 11th tip, and something that you might not know coming from a lot of MMOs, and this is actually something I didn't know until I started wondering why this kept happening, but I realized this is just the way New World works. It's that if you stun or CC an enemy and hit them, the stun will break. So if you stun something for 2 seconds, it's not like it's going to permanently sit in that 2-second stun. The second it takes damage, that stun or whatever crowd control it is, your opponent is in, it will break. So it's something to keep in mind while adventuring. My next tip, my 12th tip, is going to be to level up gathering professions alongside your leveling process. This is going to be extremely useful because throughout New World, there are a ton of quests that involve logging, skinning, mining, and so it's really good to actually level these up while you're leveling, because you're going to hit some sort of main or side quest that you need to do that's like, all right, I need you to go skin that thing, and you're going to realize, oh no, I don't have the skinning level to do it, and so you actually have to go back to the previous zone, skin a bunch of mobs, level it up, and then go back to where you were going. So I recommend throughout your leveling process, if you see an ore, mine it. If you kill something that you can skin it. If you're bored and want to hit a tree, chop down a tree. But stuff like that is just good to do during the leveling process, because these gathering professions especially will be relevant throughout the leveling process, so it is good to keep them leveled up. My 13th tip is how gear score works in the game and picking up gear works. The higher the gear score of your stuff is that you have equipped in general throughout the leveling process, the higher eye level of equipment that will drop from quests and monsters in upper level zones. Do keep that in mind. This is very similar to the SWTOR type of system. There's also at the end game, there's something that's called the watermark, where basically it works that you have to get, basically, think of it like climbing a ladder in terms of the gear drops from monsters, where, I'm just going to use, these aren't the actual numbers, I'm just going to use them for ease of example. Let's say you kill stuff in the higher level zones, and they drop eye level 100 gear, okay? You're going to have to get a bunch of 100 pieces, then you can get 105 pieces, and then 110 pieces. So the gear basically will kind of move up the more you actually get from killing monsters and stuff throughout the world. Obviously up to a certain point, because gear score per level will cap out. But in general, it's good to have the highest gear score equipment that you can have equipped as possible, so that you get those better pieces to drop. And then throughout those higher level zones, you want to just farm the monsters over and over again, so you can increase that watermark and get higher gear scored equipment to drop from those mobs. My 14th tip is going to be to always have 4 consumables on you equipped at all times: a food, a health potion, a regeneration potion, and a 4th of your choice. So personally, if you are a intelligence user and you use mana, I obviously highly recommend using a mana potion as your 4th potion. But if you are a strength or dex user, what I actually recommend doing, and what I've been doing recently, is having a 4th health potion that or like a 2nd health potion, I guess, that'll be a little bit weaker than my other one. So let's say I'm in the middle of a fight and, I want to top my heals off, but I don't want to use the, the big potion. Let's say that's a powerful potion. I could use a strong potion instead that I know will top me off, but it won't dip into my better potion reserve. But honestly, when it comes to that 4th one, completely choice and up to you if you are not a mana user. So use whichever you like. And then my final tip for this video, my 15th tip, is going to be to turn on show extra ability cooldowns in your settings. This is really, really useful to put a small radial thing below your character that shows you the cooldowns for your active abilities in your ability bar, so you don't have to keep glancing to the bottom right on your screen to see what your cooldowns are, and it will be nice and center underneath your character, so you know when your skills are good to go. But guys, with that being said, that is going to be it for me today. My top 15 tips and tricks for new players in New World. Hopefully you guys did find this helpful. And again, if you did, I'd appreciate if you left a like on it. Again, if you have any questions about any of these, feel free to leave a comment below. Or if you have a tip for these new adventurers that I did not mention here in this video, feel free to comment those below as well. And for more New World and other MMORPG content, please hit that sub button as well as hit the bell to keep those notifications on. I also do stream live on Twitch every day at about 2:30, with Wednesdays being at 7:30 or 7 o'clock, p.m. Eastern Time over on Twitch at twitch.tv/dotsgaming. Link in the description below. Anyway, guys, thank you again so much for stopping by today's video. I do very much appreciate you spending some of your time with me. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next video.